I have a promise for you. You will not hear the end of this story. In fact, I designed it that way. This story is crafted to turn your mind off, slowly, layer by layer, until you simply cannot stay awake. So, get comfortable, and let's see how long you can last before the silence takes over. The air is cool and heavy with the scent of salt and ancient water as you find yourself standing at the edge of a sleeping world. It is the hour just before dawn, when the light is barely a suggestion on the horizon, and the colors of the earth are muted shades of gray and soft blue. You are here, in this quiet place on the coast of New England, in the middle of the 19th century, where time moves not by the ticking of a clock, but by the slow and rhythmic breathing of the tides. The silence is not empty, but full of a gentle weight that presses down on your shoulders and invites you to let go of every tension you have carried with you. There is only the mist here. The fog has rolled in from the Atlantic during the night, and it wraps around the small wooden houses and the sleeping trees like a thick wool blanket. It dampens every sound and softens every edge until the world looks like a painting that has not yet dried. You begin to walk slowly down the narrow dirt path that leads from the rolling dunes toward the harbor. The ground beneath your boots is firm and cool and scattered with crushed white shells that glimmer faintly even in this low light. You take a deep breath, and the air feels clean and sharp in your lungs. It tastes of brine and damp cedar and the deep, cold ocean. With every step you take, you feel lighter and more grounded in this peaceful moment. To your left, you see the silhouette of a small cottage with a shingled roof that is dark with the morning dew. A thin curl of gray smoke rises lazily from the stone chimney and drifts straight up into the still air to join the fog. Someone is awake inside, and they are stoking the morning fire to chase away the chill, but the house is silent and still. You continue your walk toward the water. The sound of the ocean grows steadily clearer as you approach the harbor. It is not a roar, but a rhythmic hushing sound, as small waves lap against the shore and retreat back into the deep ocean. The water is calm this morning. You reach the wooden boardwalk that runs along the edge of the town, where the land meets the sea. The planks of the boardwalk are weathered and worn smooth by years of footsteps and salt spray. They are silver and gray and cool to the touch. You can hear the faint creak of the wood settling as you walk slowly along the dock. Through the white mist, you can see the vague shapes of the fishing boats resting in the harbor. Their masts rise up like a forest of bare trees and disappear into the fog above. The boats sway gently with the movement of the tide. You hear the soft groan of ropes stretching and relaxing against the wooden pilings. It is a comforting sound that repeats over and over again. A wooden hull bumps softly against a dock bumper with a dull thud. Then there is silence, then the creak of the rope, then the water lapping. It is a slow melody that has played here for 100 years and will play for 100 more. You pause to lean against a sturdy wooden railing and look out into the white expanse. You cannot see the horizon where the sky meets the water. You can only see the soft gradient of gray fading into white. Close to the dock, a small dory boat glides out of the mist. A fisherman in a thick wool coat sits in the center of the boat. He is rowing with slow and deliberate strokes. You watch the oars dip into the glassy water with a quiet splash. He pulls back and the boat slides forward effortlessly. He lifts the oars and the water drips from the wooden blades in a steady rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. He does not look up. He is at peace with the morning, and he disappears back into the fog as quietly as he arrived. As the light begins to brighten just a fraction, the town begins to wake up around you. It is a slow awakening without rush or alarm. You turn back toward the cluster of buildings that make up the village center. The shops and homes are built of sturdy timber and painted in shades of white and slate blue to match the sea. You walk past the cooperage where barrels are made. The door is open and the smell of shaved oak and iron floats out into the street. You can hear the low murmur of voices inside and the rhythmic rasp of a plane smoothing down a piece of wood. It is the sound of steady and meaningful work. You walk further down the lane toward the general store. The windows are large and made of thick glass that distorts the view inside just enough to make it look warm and inviting. You step inside and the air is warmer here. The room smells of roasted coffee beans and dried apples and cinnamon and sawdust. The floorboards creak familiarly under your feet. Behind the long wooden counter, a shopkeeper is arranging jars of hard candy and tins of tea. He moves with a slow efficiency. He picks up a jar and wipes it with a cloth and places it on the shelf. There is no hurry. A cat sleeps on a barrel of flour near the window, and its chest rises and falls in a deep sleep. You watch the dust motes dancing in the shaft of pale light that has just broken through the clouds. Everything here has its place, and everything is safe.
You leave the store and walk back out into the morning air, which is beginning to warm as the sun burns through the upper layers of the fog. The mist is lifting now. It pulls back from the water to reveal the deep blue of the harbor. The seagulls have begun their day. They glide on the air currents overhead, with their white wings outstretched and motionless. They do not cry out, but simply float on the breeze and watch the world below. You can see the full expanse of the docks now. Men are mending nets on the pier. They sit on wooden crates with the heavy nets spread out across their laps. Their hands move in a practiced rhythm as they weave the twine over and under and through. They do not speak much. They simply work and watch the water and breathe the salt air. It is a meditative task that requires patience and calm. You continue your journey along the coastline, walking away from the town and toward the high dunes that guard the shore. The sand here is soft and pale and dotted with clumps of beach grass that sway and rustle in the gentle wind. The wind is low today, and it whispers through the grass with a sound like a long sigh. You find a path that winds up the side of a dune, and you follow it to the top. From here you can see the vast Atlantic Ocean stretching out forever. The water is a tapestry of blues and greens, shifting slowly as the clouds move across the sky. The waves roll in long, straight lines that travel for miles before they curl over and break gently onto the sand. You watch one wave form in the distance. You follow it with your eyes as it rises and travels and finally washes onto the shore in a sheet of white foam. And you watch the next one. and the next one. The rhythm is hypnotic. In the distance, standing tall on a rocky point of land, is the lighthouse. It is a white tower that stands against the sky as a beacon of safety and constancy. You decide to walk toward it. The path is lined with wild roses that are blooming with small pink flowers. The scent of the roses mixes with the sea air to create a perfume that is sweet and wild. As you approach the lighthouse, you can see the keeper at work in the lantern room at the very top. He is polishing the great glass lens. You can imagine the quiet up there in the glass room, high above the waves. You can imagine the sound of the cloth rubbing against the glass and the view of the endless horizon. You reach the base of the lighthouse and sit on a smooth granite rock that has been warmed by the afternoon sun. The stone feels solid and ancient beneath you. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the symphony of the coast. You hear the deep bass note of the ocean. You hear the high whistle of the wind in the lighthouse railing. You hear the distant chime of a bellboy bobbing in the shipping channel. Clang, clang. It is a lonely but comforting sound that tells the sailors where they are. It tells you that you are safe. The afternoon passes slowly. The sun begins its long descent toward the western horizon behind the town. The light changes from the bright white midday to a warm golden hue that gilds the edges of the waves and makes the windows of the town glow like amber. The shadows of the dunes stretch out long and purple across the sand. The air begins to cool again, and the wind shifts. You decide to walk back toward the village as the day begins to fold into evening. As you walk back through the town, the workday is ending. The cooper has closed its doors. The fishermen are tying up their boats for the night. You see them walking up the docks carrying their catch in woven baskets. They walk slowly and tiredly, but with the satisfaction of a day well spent. You pass by the small houses and you can see the glow of candlelight flickering in the windows. Families are gathering for their evening meal. You catch the scent of baking bread and roasting root vegetables and a hot stew. That is the savory and grounding smell that speaks of home and comfort. You walk past a small white church with a modest steeple. The door is open and you can hear the faint sound of an organ playing a slow and simple hymn. The notes float out into the twilight and hang in the air. The music is mournful but beautiful, and it resonates in your chest. You pause to listen until the final chord fades away into silence. The sun has dipped below the horizon now, and the sky is a gradient of violet and indigo. The first star appears in the west. It is bright and steady. You find yourself walking toward a small cottage near the edge of the water. This is your place of rest. You open the wooden door and step inside. The room is small and cozy. There is a stone fireplace on one side of the room where a fire is already crackling softly. The logs shift and settle with a gentle pop. The light from the fire dances on the walls and casts warm orange shadows that flicker and sway. There is a thick woven rug on the floor and a sturdy armchair with soft cushions. You sit down in the chair and let your body sink into the softness. You're tired in a good and heavy way. You look around the room. There are wooden shelves lined with leather-bound books. There is a small table with a ceramic pitcher and a bowl. There is a window that looks out toward the lighthouse. You can see the beam of light from the tower now. It gets through the darkness in a long straight ray. It sweeps across the water in a slow circle. You watch the light. It appears on the left side of the window. It sweeps across the glass. It disappears to the right. Then there is darkness for a couple of seconds. Then the light returns. Sweep. Dark. Sweep. Dark.
The town outside is settling into deep silence. The carts have stopped rolling. The voices have hushed. The only sounds left are the sounds of the night. You hear the wind brushing against the shingles of the roof. You hear the rhythmic wash of the waves on the beach, which seems louder now that the world is quiet. You hear the settling of the house as the wood cools in the night air. You stand up slowly and walk to the table. You pour a glass of water from the pitcher. The water is cool and clear. You drink it slowly and feel it cool your throat. You walk to the window and look out one last time. The ocean is a dark void beneath the stars. The sky is full of them now. Thousands of tiny points of light scattered across the black velvet of the heavens. They're the same stars that the sailors used to find their way home. They are the same stars that have watched over this coast for eons. They twinkle silently and steadfastly. You turn away from the window and prepare for sleep. You extinguish the candles one by one. As each flame vanishes, the room becomes darker and the glow of the fireplace becomes more pronounced. The shadows deepen and soften. You move to the bed, which is piled high with heavy quilts and woolen blankets. The sheets are crisp and smell of lavender and fresh air. You lie down and pull the covers up to your chin. The weight of the blankets is comforting. It holds you down and makes you feel secure. You lie on your back and watch the reflection of the firelight on the ceiling. The light is fading as the fire burns down to embers. The orange glow pulses gently. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out slowly. Your body feels heavy and loose. Your legs are heavy. Your arms are heavy. Your eyelids feel like they are made of lead. You listen to the sound of the ocean outside. Whoosh, hush, whoosh, hush. It is the earth breathing with you. You think about the fog rolling back in. You imagine it creeping over the water and covering the boots. You imagine it sliding through the streets of the town and wrapping around the houses. You imagine it softening the world once more. The lighthouse beam continues its rotation. Even with your eyes closed, you can sense its rhythm. It is a guardian watching over you. The fire is just a faint red glow now. The room is almost dark. The silence of the house is absolute. You are safe. You are warm. You are at peace. The day is done. The work is finished. There is nothing left to do but drift. You let your mind float away from the shore. You drift out over the calm, dark water. You drift toward the horizon. The sound of the waves becomes a soft whisper. The sound of the wind becomes a gentle hum. The world fades. The darkness is soft and welcoming. You sink deeper into the warmth, deeper into the quiet, deeper into the night. As you drift in that space between wakefulness and dreams, the world outside continues its slow and silent rotation. The town you have walked through is now fully submerged in the velvet depth of the night. It is a time when the earth belongs to the wind and the water and the distant watching stars. While you rest, wrapped in the warmth of the heavy quilts, the rhythm of the coast does not stop. It merely slows down to a pace that is ancient and deep. Your awareness floats gently out of the window, carried on the cool night breeze, moving effortlessly over the sleeping rooftops. You drift over the narrow lanes where the dust has settled and the footprints of the day have been smoothed over by the wind. The general store is dark and silent, its windows reflecting the pale moonlight like polished obsidian. The wooden sign above the door creaks ever so slightly, a tiny pendulum marking the passage of time in the emptiness of the street. There is a profound peace in seeing a place usually filled with life now completely at rest. It is a reminder that everything pauses, everything recharges, everything finds a moment of stillness. You float further, moving toward the edge of the forest that borders the town. Here, the scent changes from the sharp brine of the sea to the deep mossy fragrance of pine and damp earth. The trees stand like silent sentinels, their branches interlocking overhead to form a canopy that filters the starlight into soft, dappled patterns on the forest floor. There is no movement here, only the presence of the trees breathing in the cool air. You might hear the soft hoot of an owl, a low and mournful note that echoes through the timber and fades into silence. It is not a scary sound, but a comforting one, a signal that the night forest is awake and watching. The wind moves through the pine needles with a sound like rushing water, a soft shh that rises and falls. It is the earth breathing. You feel the coolness of the air here, distinct from the dampness of the coast. It is crisp and dry and smells of resin and old leaves. You linger here for a moment, suspended in the shadows, feeling the solid, unmoving strength of the trees. They have stood here for generations, weathering storms and basking in sun, and tonight they are simply resting, just like you. Slowly, your attention turns back toward the ocean, drawn by the rhythmic sweep of the lighthouse beam. You drift out of the forest, over the sleeping dunes, and toward the tall white tower on the point. Inside the glass room at the top, the world is quiet and warm. You find yourself observing the lighthouse keeper in his solitude. He is an older man with a beard the color of sea foam, and he moves with a slowness that matches the night. He does not speak. He does not rush. He sits in a wooden chair with a thick book open on his lap, reading by the light of a small lantern.
Every so often, he stands up to check the great lamp. He adjusts the wick by a fraction of an inch. He checks the oil level. He polishes a smudge from the brass fitting with a soft cloth. His movements are a dance of care and precision. He knows that his light is the heartbeat of the coast, and he tends to it with a reverence that borders on prayer. Outside the glass, the beam cuts through the dark, turning the moisture in the air into a shimmering tunnel of light. You watch the dust motes dancing in the beam, swirling and floating in the silence. The keeper looks out at the horizon. He sees nothing but the black water and the stars, yet he looks with intent. He is the guardian of the sleep of the town. Because he is awake, the fishermen can sleep. Because he is watching, the families in the cottages are safe. There is a deep comfort in knowing that someone is keeping watch, that the light will not go out, that the vigilance is maintained while the world dreams. You feel a sense of gratitude for this silent guardian, and then you drift away, leaving him to his book and his light. You move out over the water now. The ocean is vast and breathing. The tide has turned and is beginning to ebb, pulling slowly away from the land. The water moves with a heavy, glassy smoothness, rising and falling in long, slow swells that do not break but simply roll under the surface. You hover just above the waves, close enough to hear the whisper of the water moving against itself. It is a chaotic sound by day, but tonight it is a uniform hum, a white noise that blankets the world. Far out in the deep water, a ship is passing in the night. It is a schooner, its sails furled, moving under the power of the wind on its bare masts and the pull of the current. It is just a shadow against the stars, a ghost ship moving silently toward a distant port. There are no lights visible on deck, only the faint glow of the binnacle illuminating the compass for the helmsman. You imagine the crew asleep in their bunks, rocked by the gentle motion of the sea, dreaming of land. The ship glides past and disappears into the horizon, leaving no trace but a wake of bubbles that fizz and pop and vanish. You drift back toward the shore, following the line of the breaking waves. You reach the harbor again. The fog has thickened here in the hours since midnight. It curls around the pilings of the dock and obscures the water below. The boats are barely visible now, just dark shapes wrapped in gray cotton. The bell buoy clangs in the distance, a slow and lonely sound. Clang, clang. It measures the seconds, the minutes, the hours. You return to the cottage, slipping back through the walls like a thought returning to the mind. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a bed of glowing red coals. They pulse with a faint heat that keeps the room comfortable. The shadows have stopped dancing and have settled into the corners of the room. The silence inside is absolute. You can hear your own breathing, slow and steady, in and out, in and out. You settle back into the heaviness of your body. You feel the mattress supporting you, the pillow cradling your head. The journey through the sleeping town has made you heavier, more relaxed. You realize that there is nowhere else you need to be. There is nothing else you need to see. The town is safe. The forest is safe. The ocean is calm. The lighthouse is shining. Everything is as it should be. You let go of the images now. You let the lighthouse fade. You let the trees fade. You let the ocean fade. All that is left is the sensation of warmth and the rhythm of your own breath. You are sinking down, down, down into a velvet darkness that is soft and kind. It is the darkness of deep, restorative sleep. It wraps around you like the fog, protecting you, hushing the world, holding you still. The night stretches out before you, long and uninterrupted. Hours of quiet darkness await, hours of peace. You surrender to it completely. You are part of the stillness now. You are part of the night. Sleep comes not as a stranger, but as a familiar friend, taking your hand and leading you gently into the silence. The silence deepens, the stillness expands, and you drift. You drift, you sleep. You are now deep within the quietest hours, the time when the night feels not like a covering, but like a vast and gentle ocean in itself. The world has stopped moving. The village, the harbor, and the rolling hills have all surrendered to the stillness. There is no more striving, no more doing, there is only being. You are drifting in the center of this stillness, suspended in a moment that feels as though it could last forever. The fire in the hearth has finally given up its last flame. Now there is only a bed of soft gray ash and the faintest memory of warmth radiating from the stones. The light in the room has changed from the flickering orange of the fire to the cool, steady silver of the moonlight. The moonlight spills through the window pane and stretches across the floorboards in long, slanted rectangles. It moves so slowly that you cannot see it shift, yet it marks the passage of the night with absolute precision. It touches the woven rug. It touches the leg of the wooden chair. It illuminates the dust motes that hang suspended in the air, frozen in time. Outside the walls of the cottage, the wind has dropped completely. The air is still and cold and incredibly clear. If you were to walk the streets now, your footsteps would sound loud on the packed earth, echoing against the silent houses. But there are no footsteps. The lanes are empty ribbons of shadow and pale light. The shops are shuttered tight. The tools of the day, the hammers, the nets, the plows, are resting where they were left, cooling in the night air, waiting patiently for the hands that will hold them again tomorrow. There's a dignity in their rest. They have served their purpose for the day, and now they, too, are allowed to stop. Your mind drifts away from the village center and floats out toward the edges of the town, where the houses give way to open fields and pastures. Here, the smell of the salt sea mixes with the scent of damp hay and damp earth. In the barns that dot the hillside, the animals are asleep. You can sense their heavy, warm presence in the dark. The horses stand in their stalls, heads lowered, resting on 3 legs. Their breathing is deep and slow, creating small clouds of mist in the cool barn air. A cow shifts its weight in the straw with a soft rustling sound, then settles back into stillness. There is a profound peace in the presence of sleeping animals, a simple and uncomplicated trust in the safety of the night. Beyond the farms, the land rises up to meet the sky. The stars have wheeled overhead, turning on their great celestial axis. The constellations that were low in the east when you first lay down are now high in the south, watching over the world with their cold, bright eyes. They are the ancient clock by which the sailors steer and the farmers plant, and they tick forward silently, majestic and indifferent to the worries of the world below. Under their gaze, you feel small in the most comforting way. You are just one small part of a vast and harmonious universe that knows exactly what it is doing. You do not need to control anything. You do not need to worry about the rotation of the earth or the rising of the sun. It is all being taken care of for you. You drift back down from the hills, moving toward the water once more.
The tide has gone out completely now. The harbor is at its lowest point. The water has retreated, revealing the dark, glistening mudflats that smell of rich earth and ancient minerals. The fishing boats that were floating earlier now rest heavily on the wet sand, leaning to one side, waiting for the ocean to return. They look like sleeping giants, hulking and peaceful. The water is far out, a thin silver line in the distance, whispering against the sandbars. It is the deep exhale of the ocean. It has breathed out, and soon, in its own time, it will breathe in again. But for now, there is only the pause, the space between breaths. You return to the feeling of your own body in the bed. The quilt feels even heavier now, a protective weight that anchors you to the mattress. The pillows cool against your cheek. Your breath has synchronized with the slow rhythm of the night. You are not just sleeping, you are recharging. Every muscle, every bone, every thought is being washed clean by the silence. The worries of yesterday have faded into the distance, so far away that you cannot even remember what they were. The tasks of tomorrow are not yet born. You are safe in the bridge between the two, in the sanctuary of the now. The silence is not empty, it is a presence. It fills the corners of the room. It wraps around you like a second blanket. It hungs with a frequency that is too low to hear, but easy to feel. It is the sound of the earth resting. It is the sound of the trees growing. It is the sound of the night healing the day. You let yourself sink into it. You let it support you. There is nothing to listen for. There is nothing to watch. The lighthouse beam sweeps, but you do not need to see it. The tide turns, but you do not need to feel it. The stars spin, but you do not need to track them. You simply exist. You float. You rest. Deep, velvety, timeless rest. The night holds you. The darkness soothes you. And you drift deeper still, deeper, deeper, into the perfect silence. In this depth of the night, time seems to dissolve completely. There are no hours and no minutes here. There is only the vast and silent continuum of the dark. You are floating in a space that exists between the memories of the day past and the promise of the day to come. It is a sanctuary of absolute suspension where nothing is required of you. The air in the room has cooled further and settled into a crisp stillness that feels clean and pure. You can feel the coolness on the tip of your nose while the rest of you remains buried deep within the warmth of the heavy wool blankets. It is a contrast that makes the comfort of the bed feel even more profound. You are sheltered. You are enclosed. You are safe within the sturdy walls of this cottage that has stood against the wind for 100 years. Outside the window, the world is undergoing a slow and secret transformation. The moisture in the air is beginning to settle on the earth. If you were to look closely at the window pane, you would see the faintest mist forming on the glass. It blurs the view at the stars just slightly and turns the outside world into a soft impressionist painting of indigo and silver. On the grass of the dunes and the wooden planks of the boardwalk, the dew is gathering. It forms tiny, perfect spheres of water on every blade of beach grass and every rough splinter of wood. The world is being washed. The world is being renewed. It happens silently and without effort. It is the earth taking care of itself while you sleep. Far down in the harbor, the rhythm of the ocean has shifted once again. The pause at low tide has ended, and the great inhalation has begun. The water is returning. It creeps slowly back over the dark mudflats. It covers inch by inch the sand and the stones and the shells. It slides around the hulls of the resting fishing boats. At first the boats do not move. They remain heavy and grounded. But as the water rises deeper and deeper, they begin to feel the buoyancy returning. Slowly and gently they lift off the bottom. They float free. The ropes that tether them to the docks slacken and then pull tight again as the boats shift with the incoming current. The sound of the water changes from a distant whisper to a closer and more rhythmic lapping. Slap, hush, slap, hush. It is the sound of the harbor filling up again. It is a sound of fullness and return.
You listen to this sound in your mind. It is a steady heartbeat that underpins the silence. You imagine the water rising up the wooden pilings of the pier. You imagine it covering the barnacles and the seaweed. You imagine it lifting the floating docks. The ocean is reclaiming its territory with a patience that is infinite. It does not rush. It does not struggle. It simply flows. And as you listen, you feel your own breath mimicking that flow. Your chest rises and falls like the tide. Your breath flows in and flows out. There is no effort in it. It is as natural and automatic as the sea. The lighthouse continues its silent vigil. The beam is a pale finger of light that strokes the surface of the rising water. In this darkest part of the night, the light seems brighter than ever. It catches the tops of the swells and turns them into momentary ribbons of diamonds. Then the dark returns, then the light. It is a lullaby of light and shadow. The keeper in the tower is likely drinking a cup of hot coffee now to stay warm against the chill. He is the only witness to the turning of the tide. He watches the water rise, and he watches the stars slowly wheel toward the western horizon. He is content in his solitude. He knows that down in the village, the people are sleeping soundly, because his light is burning. Your mind drifts further inland to the small freshwater pond that sits behind the dunes. The water there is perfectly flat and motionless. It reflects the sky like a black mirror. The frogs and the crickets have ceased their singing for the night. Even the night creatures are resting now. The reeds that line the banks stand tall and still. A single leaf might detach from a willow tree and float down to land on the surface of the water. It lands without a sound. It creates the tiniest of ripples that spread out in perfect concentric circles until they disappear into the bank. The stillness swallows the movement instantly. Back in the cottage, the room is a cocoon of shadows. The furniture is merely dark shapes against the darker walls. The familiarity of the room is a comfort. You know exactly where the door is. You know exactly where the window is. You do not need to see them to know they're there. You are grounded in this space. You feel the weight of your body pressing down into the mattress. Your legs feel long and heavy. Your arms are limp and relaxed at your sides. Your hands are open and soft. There is no tension in your fingers. There is no tension in your jaw. Your forehead is smooth. You are completely undone. The silence is thick and soft like velvet. It fills your ears and quiets your mind. Thoughts may come, but they are slow and hazy. They drift through your mind like the fog outside. They do not stick. They do not demand attention. They simply float by and dissolve. You watch them go without judgment. You are merely the observer. You are the stillness behind the thoughts. You feel a profound sense of gratitude for this rest. In a world that often demands so much movement and noise, this pause is a gift. It is a time to simply exist. It is a time to let the batteries recharge. It is a time to heal. You feel the restoration happening in every cell of your body. You are drinking in the quiet. You are absorbing the peace. It is soaking into your bones. The night is long, and there is still plenty of time. There is no rush to wake. There is no rush to rise. The dawn is still far away. The sun is still deep beneath the horizon. For now, there is only the dark and the cool and the quiet. There is only the bed and the blanket and the breath. There is only the slow return of the tide and the steady rotation of the light. You sink deeper. The world fades further. The silence expands. You are floating in the center of the night, weightless, timeless, at peace. The hours continue to drift by in a slow and unmeasured procession. You have reached the deepest part of the night now. It is the time when the silence is most profound and the solitude is most complete. The village outside is not just asleep, it is suspended in a state of absolute stillness. There is no movement in the streets. There is no light in the windows of the cottages, save for the faint embers of dying fires that glow unseen behind drawn curtains. The world has turned inward. It is a time for the earth to dream. You are vaguely aware of the atmosphere changing outside the walls of your sanctuary. The air has become heavier and damper. The fog that had lifted slightly in the evening has returned with a new density. It rolls in from the open ocean in great silent waves. It fills the harbor. It fills the spaces between the boats. It climbs the wooden pilings of the pier and wraps around the barrels and the ropes. It moves up the narrow lanes of the town, softening the hard edges of the buildings, blurring the lines between the earth and the sky. The town is now an island within an island, cut off from the rest of the world by a wall of white mist. Through the thickness of the fog, you hear a sound that is both lonely and comforting. It is the distant sound of the foghorn from the lighthouse. It is a low, mournful note that vibrates through the air. Ooh. It sounds for a long moment, deep and resonant. Then there is silence. You wait in the warmth of your bed. You breathe in. You breathe out. Then it sounds again. Ooh. It is a steady warning, a voice in the white darkness telling the ships that the land is here, that the danger is known, that someone is watching. The sound does not disturb your sleep. Instead, it deepens it. It is a rhythmic reminder that you are protected. Inside the cottage, the temperature has dipped to its lowest point. The stones of the fireplace are cooling. The air in the room is brisk, but under your layers of quilts, you are in a perfect microclimate of warmth. You feel the heat of your own body reflected back to you by the heavy wool. You curl your toes into the softness of the mattress. You pull the blanket up just a little higher, tucking it around your ears to muffle the sound of the foghorn, turning it into a distant lullaby. The contrast between the cold air on your face and the warmth of your body is delicious. It makes you feel snug and secure, like a seed buried deep in the earth waiting for spring. Your mind drifts back to the harbor, guided by the sound of the horn. You imagine the water there. It is high tide now. The ocean has filled the basin completely. The water is lapping high against the wooden seawall. The boats are floating high on their moorings. They drift aimlessly in the fog, swinging slowly on their ropes. The water is dark and glossy, like oil. It absorbs the sound of the night. If a fish were to jump, the splash would be swallowed instantly by the mist. The seagulls are huddled on the rooftop.
And the railings, their heads tucked under their wings, fast asleep. They do not fly in this fog. They wait. Everything waits. You drift further out, past the harbor, past the lighthouse, out onto the open ocean. The sea is rolling in long, smooth swells under the blanket of fog. There is no horizon. The water meets the mist, and they become one gray expanse. You are floating over this vastness, weightless and free. There is nothing to see here, only the feeling of infinite space. The world is huge and quiet. The worries of your life are tiny specks of dust left far behind on the shore. They cannot reach you here. You are part of the vast, breathing ocean. You rise with the swell, you fall with the trough, up and down, slow and steady. Back in the room, the shadows have remained unchanged for hours. The moonlight has moved across the floor and is now fading as the fog blocks out the sky. The room is dimmer, more enclosed. You feel a heavy drowsiness that pulls you down like gravity. It is a good heaviness. It is the feeling of a body that has done its work and is now reaping the reward of rest. Your eyelids are sealed shut. Your breathing is shallow and rhythmic. You are on the very edge of deep, dreamless sleep. Somewhere in the village, perhaps in the small bakery on the main lane, the very first stirring of the new day is just beginning to happen. It is not a noise, but a presence. The baker has woken in the dark. He moves quietly in his kitchen, lighting a single candle. He opens the iron door of the great brick oven. He strikes a match and lights the wood that was lain the night before. The fire catches. The warmth begins to build. The smell of wood smoke begins to drift faintly into the damp air. But this is far away.
It does not concern you. It is merely a signal that the cycle continues, that the bread will be there when you wake, that the world is turning as it should. For you, there is only the sleep. You let go of the image of the baker. You let go of the image of the ocean. You return to the center of your being. You feel the beat of your own heart. Pump, pump, thump, thump. It is slow and steady, a drum keeping time with the universe. You feel the flow of blood in your veins, warm and life-giving. You are a miracle of existence, resting in a quiet room by the sea. You do not need to do anything to justify this rest. It is yours by right. The foghorn sounds again. It is fainter now, as if it is moving away from you. Or perhaps you are moving away from it, drifting deeper into the caverns of sleep. The sound wraps around you. The silence wraps around you. The warmth wraps around you. You are slipping away. You are drifting down, down through the layers of the night, down through the layers of the mist, down into the soft, dark, welcoming nothingness. There is no time here. There is no place here. There is only the feeling of peace. Absolute, unbroken peace. You rest. You drift. You sleep.
This is the deepest hour. It is the time when the night stands still, holding its breath before the very first suggestion of dawn. But dawn is still far away. Here, in this moment, there is only the vast, enveloping comfort of the dark. The fog outside has thickened to its maximum density, swallowing the world whole. The town of wooden houses and narrow lanes has disappeared into the mist. The harbor has disappeared. The ocean has disappeared. Even the stars have veiled themselves. There is nothing left but this room, this bed, and you. The silence is no longer just a lack of sound. It is a physical weight. It is a soft, heavy blanket that presses down on everything. The foghorn has fallen silent. The wind has ceased entirely. The only sound in the universe is the slow, rhythmic sound of your own breathing. In, out, in, out. It is the most peaceful sound in the world. It is the sound of life resting. You feel a profound sense of detachment. The person who walked the docks earlier today feels like a distant memory, someone you read about in a book long ago. The worries you carried, the plans you made, the lists you kept, they have all dissolved like sugar in hot tea. They are gone. You are stripped of all doing, left only with being. You are simply a warm presence in the dark, safe and held. Your body is heavy, so very heavy. It feels as though you are sinking into the mattress, melting into the softness of the feathers and the wool. Your limbs are loose and warm. Your hands are open. Your forehead is smooth and cool. There is not a single knot of tension left in you. You are completely unraveled. You are liquid. You are drifting on a calm, dark, underground river that flows slowly toward a sea of sleep. You let your mind wander one last time to the image of the lighthouse. You imagine the keeper sitting in his chair, his head nodding, his eyes heavy. The light still turns, sweep, flash, dark, but it does so silently, a ghost light in the fog.
It is there, but it does not demand your attention. It is simply part of the night, like the air, like the sea, like the earth. The room is perfectly still. The shadows have stopped moving. The air is still. The dust motes have settled. Everything has come to rest. You feel a wave of warmth wash over you, starting at the top of your head and moving slowly down to the tips of your toes. It is a wave of relaxation, a wave of permission. Permission to let go, permission to stop, permission to sleep. The darkness behind your eyelids is rich and velvety. It is a space of infinite potential and infinite rest. You stare into it and it soothes you. There are no images there anymore, no colors, just the soft, warm dark. You are floating in it. You are weightless. You feel the boundary between waking and sleeping dissolve completely. It is not a wall, but a mist. You step through it effortlessly. On the other side is silence. On the other side is peace. The world fades, the room fades, the body fades. There is only the drift. There is only the quiet. There is only the night. Drifting, floating, sinking. Silence, silence, sleep.
If you enjoyed this astonishing, fact-filled, and mysterious historical journey, please give us a like. Our mission is to bring forth the mysterious, historical, and astonishing truths that may have been overlooked or incorrectly taught in traditional accounts. We uncover the realities that are often missing from standard history books. If you don't want to miss out on these kinds of historical, mysterious, and mind-boggling truths, then be sure to subscribe to our channel now.